This is WBSM On Demand.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back to the program. Of course, I'm Chris McCarthy, and we're now joined by the repentant Democrat rep, Christopher Markey, friend of the program, great friend of mine. Chris, good morning. Thanks for coming in.
I don't think I'm repenting, but I am here.
We'll see.
No,
We'll see. So you had a nice piece in the New Bedford Light.
I just, I was interviewed by Arthur Hirsch. I kind of told him what I thought, and as I try to explain it to people that if any of one of the Celtics coach or the Patriots coach loses 7 games in a row, you start to wonder the game plan and figure out, are we doing things right?
Right.
With the personnel you have, are we winning? And I think it's time for the Democratic Party to look at that and say, if we can lose to what I describe as a miserable human being,
Yes.
the way we lost, and lost all swing states and all of that, then we need to look at our game plan and figure out what are we doing wrong. Because I think, prior to 2016, that a person with the character that the president-elect has would not even make it to a primary, or not even really, maybe even get enough signatures to get on a ballot anywhere or go through the process of doing that. So in that respect, I think we need to, if we lose to those types of games, we got to look at our game plan.
Do you think it's a communication issue or a policy issue?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think I think you got to look at it, take a step back and figure out, how did we get here? How does even a guy like that get elected? And so that's the first step. And I think when you analyze it, there's no silver bullet. But I do think there's a kind of a constellation of experiences that people have had over the last 2 to 3 decades where they've distrusted institutions. Whether it be like the Catholic Church, and people distrust that institution.
Yes,
whether it be criminal justice, there's a segment of the population that distrusts that.
Right.
Whether it be law enforcement, they distrust that. Whether it be education, they've come to kind of understand that the institutions are now not working for them, but are working to preserve the institutions.
Right.
And I think the fact that the people who are in charge of these larger institutions forget their constituencies and the persons they're supposed to serve, that they lose touch. And I think, the Republican Party is an institution and the Democratic Party is an institution. And the Republican Party has grasped that and dealt with that distrust. And
Right.
have, nominated and got elected Trump. The Democrats, I think, have missed out on that and missed out on that understanding. And I think that's a lack of really living a life where they follow up on everyday life. I mean, when you look at these people who are now in public office, particularly Washington, there's a buffer all the time between them and the people. I mean, right. You watch the U.S. senators come around. You watch any that. There's always 12 people around them. You can't even get to them to ask a question.
Right.
That's a real problem. That's a lack of understanding. I get my coffee at Cumberland Farms every morning, right. And I hear the conversations between people. I get it. I don't go to the shishi coffee shop and sit there and contemplate big life issues.
Right.
I try to be practical and listen to what people's concerns are. And quite frankly, it's pretty obvious that they distrust government, they distrust the parties, they distrust the institutions that you and I grew up with trusting. So we got to figure out that.
You've also got a left-wing problem. You yourself were challenged by an extraordinarily underqualified left-wing challenger, backed by even the teachers' union.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and your constituents reelected you overwhelmingly. But I mean, there is a hard left that even tries to take out what I think are moderate people like you.
Yeah, but there's a hard right trying to take out moderate Republicans too, and that's just the way it happens. But I think what we need to do is really start to think about the policies that we've had, and I think that's part of it. Is that you know, and I could list a few that we've gone too far on, whether it be gun control. Did we go too far? Maybe we could have done 80% of what we did and still accomplish.
In Massachusetts.
Yeah, in Massachusetts. Yeah. Whether it be abortion rights, did we go too far and we allow 16-year-olds to have an abortion without parental consent or judicial intervention? Is that too far?
Right.
That the general people don't. Now, academically, you could make arguments and sit in a classroom from the ivory tower and talk about these things. But the reality is that too far when my 16-year-old can't get a dental x-ray without my consent?
Right.
So like
you're a
those
dad.
things,
you know all this stuff. Right.
But then you have, the immigration issue in Massachusetts where we are spending $1 billion. Do we need to? We can still be humane and helpful to people who have come here, even if they're not here under perfect circumstances. We can still do that, but do we have to go 120% as opposed to can we go 80% of that?
Right.
And I think that's what we need to reflect on is figuring out how do we bring these people into. I mean, the fact that Seth Moulton is getting heat for what he said.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I think it's inappropriate. I mean, he's telling an opinion that I, quite frankly, agree with, and I don't know many people who don't agree with it. That even
what did he say exactly?
Martina Navratilova.
He said he didn't want men in sports with his daughter.
Yeah,
right.
I don't think it was anything more than that. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to take away transgender rights for a job or a housing or opportunities that they have. But he's saying that, your daughter, who, I still think of those kids who were on the swim team, who they've probably spent tens of thousands of hours swimming to become the elite women swimmers in college swimming. And then all of a sudden, a man basically comes in.
No, a man, yeah.
And that takes away their hope, their opportunities, all those things that we think we have in the Democratic Party, and women's rights.
Yes.
And I think that's a legitimate issue. Now, maybe that's the 20% that I'm saying we didn't have to go that far.
Right.
But I do think that we need to corral it and figure out what is the most important things to people. Now, it's probably 0.001% of the population that's affected by the transgender in sports. But it's a symbol that again, politics is just perception.
Right.
And it's a perception that is something that I don't think everyone agrees with, but we need to deal with that.
Look, I saw a video of a girl in Massachusetts getting just totally destroyed by a man on the court. It was a guy claiming he's a woman playing, I think it was volleyball. I mean, it hurt the girl's neck, the whole nine. I mean, it was devastating to see it. So it is real. I can't imagine. Like my brother, Neil, years ago now, decades ago, was a freshman girls volleyball coach, right? I'm sure he would have loved to have a ringer of a guy on the team, right? But they didn't do it.
He wouldn't have been playing freshman. He would have been playing varsity, even if he was a freshman. But that's the point. Like, we're different, and we can accept that. And I understand the idea that, this is a person who is a woman. And I get that. I understand all those things. I'm not unsympathetic to it, but I think the reality is we should be protecting the rights of all of those women who have made incredible sacrifices to get to a goal that they have always wanted.
Yes.
And then have it taken away is not like the American dream.
No.
And so that's the reality of it, but we can be pigeonholed into this idea that we're going to assist in federal funding of immigrants in prison to have transgender.
What do you think is going to happen in the legislature on the next round of migrant funding?
I don't know. It would be. I think that there's the report that came out yesterday. I haven't looked at it all, but they have brought together some of the ideas that have always raised concerns. And one is a residential requirement, with exceptions for those emergency circumstances.
Sure.
But we again,
for the emergency shelter system.
yes,
Yeah.
like where it's a battered woman or some other issue
Right.
that comes up. But I do think that we need to look at it in a better way and become more efficient in it.
What about when the president starts to try to deport these illegals? Are you going to stand with the governor when she tries to stop it?
Well, these people have rights, and no matter what the president-elect says is going to say, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. There's still the Constitution that applies to these people, and there's still rights that they have. And it's just, instead of arguing about this stuff in the form of a state house, it's going to be argued in the form of a courthouse. And let that work. That's the process. Let the process work. If the people can prove that they're here legitimately or they're an asylum seeker and it's legitimate, then fine. Then let the courts do their job. And that's the purpose of why we have the system set up the way we do.
Right.
Not every fight or every bad, immoral act of someone requires a criminal law.
You're correct.
And that's where I think we've kind of messed up, is that there's morality in a general sense that we've always agreed on. Now that morality turns more towards criminality, and we want to criminalize immoral behavior as opposed to really focusing on making sure people have rights to do what they want to do.
So I know the mayor wants to make, obviously fishing's big for the waterfront. Offshore wind now is getting bigger for the waterfront. Is deportations out of New Bedford to third world countries, is that a potential next industry for the city of New Bedford?
I think that's a little far-fetched, Christopher.
We're gonna go to the calls. Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
And good morning, Congress Representative. I know where the Democrats have gone wrong is they're on the wrong side of most issues. The illegal alien issue, the energy prices, killing the whales out in the water, the gun control issue, and even the audit of the State House. They're all on the wrong side. And that's why they're losing. Just in Massachusetts, you're winning, but for how much longer? You guys are really screwing us. I mean, the gun control thing was out of control. That's the awful bill. But just the illegal aliens and causing my insurance to go up 35%? Come on, guys. You guys got to be better to us than that.
You voted against illegal alien driver's licenses, Chris Markey, didn't you? Yeah. Thanks for the call.
I don't think that's the reason why your insurance went up 30%, is because of illegal aliens getting
only
driver's
10%.
licenses. Yeah.
But you voted against that bill.
I did.
And it was held against you by the radical left in the Democrat Party.
Well, look, I'm a middle of the road guy. I don't think just one party has the best answers.
Right.
I've never thought that. But I think that you need to have, when you're a legislator, you try to create laws from 30,000 feet as opposed to micromanaging things. And you let the process take place. And you provide incentives for good behavior. I don't think that is particularly a good incentive for
Could
that.
we lure you over to the Republican Party?
No.
We couldn't lure you over to the Republican Party. I'm not saying you have to have high tea with President Trump, although it'd be nice. Could we lure you over to be another member of the Republican caucus in the State House?
No.
They don't want cancer over there.
Yeah, apparently I'm...
508-996-0500. We got some more people on hold. If you want to get through, we're kind of having a good time here with Representative Markey is a fun guy, and he's an honest guy, so he's a friend of mine. Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Yes, good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
How you doing today?
Doing great.
Hey, I second that phone call. I want all the Democrats out of Maura Healey right down the line. I don't want to pay for illegals. I don't want men competing in women's sports. I don't want $600 electric bills. And just listening to this, completely out of touch. Gee, I don't know why. How do you not know why we voted the way we voted? We're so aggravated, the common working men. You care about all the wrong things. You put all your effort into all the twisted, demented, not right things, and you don't put any effort into the common man's problems, their bills, their daily struggles. You put all your effort into, drag queen story time, transgenders competing in women's sports. We don't want it whatsoever. We don't want it. I don't know what you people don't get. We don't want any of what you're selling. None. Have a good day.
Thanks for the call.
Well,
Chris?
if you listened intently, you would have heard what I did say. And those are the reasons why we didn't win was because exactly of what you said.
Right.
I just didn't do it in an angry, nasty voice that you did. And that's part of the problem is we can't have a rational conversation between parties of people who disagree. There's a lot of what you said that I agree with, and I said that previously, but you get on a rant and you roll and you say these things that just cause people more angst.
Do you think they'll go back and look at the gun bill again?
I think, again, this is one of those situations where I think it's going to be resolved in the courthouse because there's going to be issues on the legality of it, and I think that's what's going to happen. I don't know if we'll address them all. We might address a couple of the things, but I think it's definitely something that would be resolved in the courthouse.
508-9960. If you're on hold, stay there. I've got one phone line open if you want to get through with Representative Chris Markey here, taking your questions, taking your commentary. We're going to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Chris, that was the only tape I had all through basic training. We weren't even allowed any of it. And we got a tape at the PX, and we hid the Walkman under a wall locker, and I listened to that entire tape backwards and backwards, forwards, backwards and forwards. Duran. Chris, you've got a lot of people here who want to talk to you.
I'm sure.
Good morning. Thanks for holding. You're live on the air with Representative Chris Markey of Dartmouth.
Hey, Chris Markey. I'm not going to come in as hot. My angel on my left shoulder is holding the devil back, so you're okay. But I'm going to ask you a real serious question, though. 73% of asylum claims are denied. So if you took 15 million people and you just applied 73% to that, that's about 10.9 million illegal aliens that are going to be denied asylum. And right now, 1.1 million have actually been to court, and they've been found not to have an asylum claim, and they haven't left. So are we protecting those people too? What is that what you're saying?
It's a good list to start with.
No, I think that people use the process, and then whatever the consequences are, they have to live by them. Now you can.
Let me ask you real quick. Why? But do you have a state that wants to protect them anyway? Right.
I don't know if we have a state that wants to protect them. They want to make sure that they have their hearing, they do their thing, and I agree with the idea that if you have gone through your due process rights and need to be removed, you should be removed. But understand.
I'll leave you with this. This is why the Democrats don't get what's going on. What you just said was, we know that the state's protecting them anyway, right? Come on, let's talk. Let's not lie. Let's talk to each other. That's the reality. So you need to push back on the state and go up there and say, look, you can't protect people that have been adjudicated, which is the process, which I agree, and they have to go. Sorry. Anyway, sorry, guys.
No,
have a good day.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Don't say sorry. Appreciate your input.
I agree with that, but this is part of the problem, right? Since George Bush was president, we've never been able to accomplish a significant real immigration policy ever. And that is the problem of both parties at the federal level by a significant. You could blame for a long time the Democrats, and you can blame a long time the Republicans, and go back and forth. But one of the things I've learned is they like to fight because they can raise money on it.
Right.
And that's, again, part of this problem with the institutions that we've had, that people just distrust them. And I think that's what you see when nothing happens. As far as protecting individuals, if you're not here legally and you've gone through all your process, you should be removed. There are problems with that. There's going to be problems with it, and it's going to be heartbreaking when you watch a father of three who's been here for 10 or 12 years gets deported. And you can say, oh, well, tough luck for him. He's the one who, dug his own grave and did all that. Yeah, that's true. But there's still now 3 kids who are going to be either part of our process because they're U.S. citizens.
Right. Be one less mouth to feed. That's how I look at it.
So it's not as simple as that, and it's complicated. But I do agree that, deportation is a significant part of a great immigration policy. That's just one part of it. There's a lot of other things. Speeding up the process, having access to it, making sure it's done within 6 months.
Right.
All of those things are really important.
And why not add that industry, the deportation industry, to the New Bedford waterfront? We've got rail cars, everything right down there.
You go for it.
508-9960. I don't have the kind of capital, but we could maybe take some of the governor's money and put it into deportation industry.
Okay.
Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Rep. Markey. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I've been better.
Great. Well, you're doing a great job. So, I would have to agree with you. We need to have better dialogue between the parties. It's just not working. This angst is not working. That's what I hear day in and day out on a lot of the news and talk radio. This is just not helping anything. And people call in and they're not willing to have a conversation. That's where we need to begin. So,
I agree. I mean, I think it's disheartening when you, and again, I'm not saying I have dear friends who I have over my house who I'm friendly with and we talk and we have great time and all that are big Trump people.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not.
Of course you do.
But what is kind of disgusting about the process is the fact that someone can have an F. Biden flag hanging in front of their house when their kids are getting picked up on a school bus right in front of it. I don't think that really serves a purpose.
There's no purpose for that. Correct. There is none. There is none. And that we really have got to dial back on all that. It's just, I did not support Donald Trump, President Trump, but he is president-elect. He's going to be our president, and I just want to continue a dialogue with the other side. Chris does a good job with allowing folks like myself to call in and get our points across, but we need to have that dialogue, and it needs to happen in a respectful manner. That's all I want to see. That's all I really wish that we have.
Thanks for calling, my friend, as well, and thanks for the kind words.
I agree. I think that probably we agree on 90% of all of the issues that come up in society, and it's the 10% that get 90% of the screaming and yelling.
Do you think public employees should be allowed to strike, Chris Markey?
I don't think that teachers and policemen should be able to,
right,
or firemen.
Right.
I mean, I again, it depends on a DPW worker. I mean, if there's a community that's not having safe issues, then I think we can deal with it. But as far as pay and that, no, I don't think it's important.
And the school committee and the town administrators or the mayor who have to negotiate in good faith. I mean, you can't just hang these teachers out to dry because they can't strike. I
agree.
Right? But the idea that, because I know you get asked every year by the teachers union, they want the power to strike. I think it would be terrible, right?
I do.
Yeah, it'd be terrible. Strikes are not good. We've all lived through.
No, I mean, the primary responsibility, again, like I also, if you're in a profession,
yes,
I think that it's different than being in a trade.
Yes.
And the unionization of trades protects safety, making sure people get paid well, have the protections that they're required.
Yes.
I think that the public unions more need to deal with, when they're in existence, is deal with the politics of things. Making sure that just because they voted one way, that then the principal isn't going to do something to them, or the administrator isn't going to do something to them. But I don't think that it's a healthy for our kind of civilization to be able to do that.
No, I agree with you.
We're going to have kids have substitute teachers, or we're not going to have school for the kids. I think we lose the principle of why we have public education.
508-996-0500. Good morning. Thank you for holding.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Good morning, Representative.
Hey, Nick.
Hey. So, Representative Markey, what percentage of the state legislature would you say is on board, or not on board, with Governor Healy's position that she's not going to allow state police or anybody else that works for the state of Massachusetts to work with ICE to remove the people? What percentage of the legislature would you say is on board with her on that?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I could say that
No,
there's a
roughly, ballpark. Ballpark.
I would say
Half, third.
I'd say a half.
Thanks for calling, Nick. Half of like want her to.
I would say half are troubled by it.
Yeah. The majority of the legislature is Democrats, right?
Yes.
So you think there are some Democrats who are like, look, Trump is right. We gotta deport some of these people.
But this is the thing. It can be complex. It's not just one thing. Okay, well, we got to do this. If ICE needs help to be able to carry out their obligations, there are ways for that to happen. Just as if there was a drug investigation going on in New Bedford, the feds and the states could work together. It could be just a Fed thing, or it could be just a state thing. But when the feds come down and say, hey, we need your help because of X, Y, Z, we should be willing to do that.
Yes.
But if they don't need the help, we shouldn't just jump onto an investigation or jump into something that we might not be trained in and do the right thing for. So I'd rather have it that if the feds come down and say, hey, we need X number of troopers to do this on this particular day or do whatever, then, yeah, I would expect that to happen just as it would be any other thing, as long as what they're doing is legal.
We had Eric Caron in the other day. You know Eric. And he was talking about the raid on the Bianco factory in the south end of New Bedford, and he said that the governor, Deval Patrick at the time, good Democrat, Deval Patrick forbid the state troopers from doing anything other than escorting them in their caravan down to New Bedford.
Yeah, well, I don't know what else was, if they asked for stuff and they got refused, or if it was a post-political statement by Patrick to do that. I don't know. I don't know the circumstances.
We have one phone line open. Let's go right back to the phones. Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Hi, is that me?
Yes, sir.
Hi. Hey, I'm just wondering, what would stop ICE from pulling up a couple of buses in front of the old Bay State Correctional Center or some of these hotels where they're housing these illegals here in the state, and just taking them under federal law? What could the governor or the local government do to stop ICE from just pulling up to one of these places where there's 300 people and taking them?
Well, this kind of causes the problem here. Is that I get what you're saying, but the people in the hotel are here, known to Homeland Security and Border Patrol. So they're identified, and they are going through their process. Like the gentleman said before, maybe 73% will be removed or determined that it's not a proper asylum. So what you have is you have these people stored essentially in what quote unquote meantime until a decision has been made. Now, if you want to speed up the process because of due process rights, or you want to change those, that's what Congress has to do, is to be able to say, hey, we don't want this to happen this way. We don't want these people waiting 9-10 months or 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years before the decision is made. So now we're going to have to create a bureaucracy where there is judges who make these decisions, or we decide that we're going to take away all rights and just close the border entirely. I don't think everybody is, or the majority of the people in the country want entirely closed borders. I also don't think they want entirely open borders.
Right.
And but that process has to take place. And I assume now maybe they'll be more efficient for when a determination has been made of an asylum seeker and they're told that their asylum did not work, that it would be more quickly picked up by ICE, and maybe that's going to be their priority. I don't know. But they do have to go through a process now until Congress changes it.
Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Good morning, Chris.
Hello, good morning.
Representative Markey.
Hello.
Thank you for your service. It's not an easy job at times. The point I'd like to make and I'd like to ask you how you feel when the governor was, taking in all these people to the state, it affected a lot of our citizens, veterans, seniors, where in certain situations there were cutbacks to their programs. Even the kids, the Brockton Recreational Building was taken over. Do you think that has a part of the problem where Democrats aren't listening to the voters, the citizens, because they feel, a lot of people, they feel that this is wrong. And I'd like to see how you feel about that.
Thanks for the call.
My take on it is I think that you need to have a residential requirement to be here for a certain amount of time, unless you fall into one of the exceptions where there is some type of emergency, or you have, whether it be abuse or whether it be some like a fire or something like that, that you would have to have at least 90 days living in the Commonwealth before you could access the emergency shelter system. I think that's a fair way to try to resolve this. But again, I don't think that we are assisting how government should work for the long term when we do this.
In addition to being a legislator, you are, of course, a skilled defense attorney. You understand the law. You voted against the illegal alien driver's licenses. Can Donald Trump come in and ask for that list of who the illegal aliens, who got their driver's license after such and such a date, using what documents, and use that?
Yeah, but
is that available to them?
But there's a couple things. One is that the idea of illegal immigrants, right? People call them illegal aliens. You're thinking of people who are sneaking in under the radar, under the wall or over the wall,
right,
or around the wall.
Right.
Most of these people who have come in and are on licenses and are doing all these things are known to Homeland Security, are known to Border Patrol, and that in Customs, and that they are here legally at this point, as far as being known to everybody.
Okay.
But they're going through this process.
Right.
And that's the problem, is this process that we talk about is way too long. People shouldn't be able to establish.
Should be able to have kids and buy a house.
What are we going to do? We're going to legislate morality again and all of that. Like that's the problem, is that it's just not that simple.
Right.
So you have to weigh out things and balance things. And my concern is that if we give too much, it becomes a beacon and people come to us.
I was going to say,
for that sole purpose.
Right.
And that is not the goal of the emergency shelter system. The emergency shelter system was established to make sure that there was a safety net for people who needed it who are residents and citizens of the Commonwealth.
Yes. Are you concerned at all? Barry Richard yesterday was reporting, reading from the media, that migrants are now pulling up route in Colorado and heading to Massachusetts, where the Massachusetts government's going to protect them.
Again, I don't know what the media source is. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but I've been saying that for 2 years.
You have.
And I've said it about the licenses, is
right,
that if you provide too much, it's going to be an incentive for people to come here for
whatever you subsidize, reason. You get more of.
Yeah.
Right? Basic economics. We're going to take a break. If you're on hold, stay there. We'll get to you. Stick around. We'll be right back. Christmas shopping. Clothes that fit your South Coast lifestyle, owned and operated by the same family since 1947. You'll often find members of the Carter family, Kevin Carter in particular, down at the New Bedford store or at the Fall River store. Both those stores have free parking, friendly, consistently helpful customer service people. You can get in and get out real quick. Chris, you done your Christmas shopping yet?
I have not. It's not Christmas Eve yet.
It's not Christmas. Carter's Clothing and Footwear. You can even get gift certificates. Not a bad option, right?
Yep.
Really good option. Carter's Clothing and Footwear. Wide variety of brands you can trust. From a brand you can trust. You cannot beat the prices at Carter's Clothing and Footwear. Make downtown New Bedford a great spot to shop, or downtown Fall River. Carter's Clothing and Footwear. Let's go back to the phones. Thank you for holding. You're live on the air with Representative Markey.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Mr. Markey.
Hey, Sam.
How are you? Thank
Good.
you for taking the time out and listening to us and speaking to the public directly. My concern is that if anybody was fortunate enough to put their feet on the ground over the border, they knew that they were coming in, going around the process. I don't think anybody that came into the country didn't know that they weren't passing by people that have been in line waiting for the process to happen through New York or whatever state it's through now. There's been a process in place for years that maybe that's where the problem is. Maybe that should have been fixed prior to just opening the floodgates and saying, we have too many people, we can't do nothing about it, we got to let them in. And then making it even easier and easier. Like you said, if you open up that can of worms, everybody's going to come in and feed. So I don't know. I just don't think that they came into the country blind, not knowing what the repercussions could be at some day. Even if we know they're here and they have a number, I think they should be sent back in an orderly fashion. Take the family with them. Nobody wants to be ripped up out of their life, right? I mean, if they got somewhat settled here, but they have to go back through the process and come in the proper way. I just don't see how they feel that it's fair to anyone else who's paying the cost and waiting the time and being checked out legally, that they should be in front of them.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Sam.
No, I agree. I mean, I think this is the problem again, and I'm not going to harp on the whole idea of institutions and all that stuff, but why hasn't Congress resolved this?
American people resolved it last November. Last week ago.
But why haven't they done anything? It's not just, you had a bipartisan thing in last year. Yeah, that's great, and I support it, and I think we need to have something like that. But why didn't they have it in 2000? Why didn't they have it in 2002 or 4 or 6 or 8? It's because these institutions want the fight to keep it going and figure it out. And
Thanks for holding. You're live on the air.
How you doing?
Not bad, my friend. How are you?
Not so bad. I got a quick question for you. I hear a lot about, people that came across the border and whatnot. But how about all the people that come over across and, for maybe a 2-week vacation but never go back? That's still illegal, isn't it?
That's how the 9/11 hijack is operated.
It is.
Yeah, I never hear about them saying, anybody that's illegally here, they're going to send back. It seems like they talk about only the people that came across the border, which I'm all for sending everybody back that's illegal. But I think it should be everybody, not just, people that came across in the last year or two.
No, I think that one of the problems that we have is that we don't have a process to deal with them quickly. If you go to New Bedford District Court, your case is probably going to be resolved in a year. Right? There used to be 12,000 cases in New Bedford District Court. Now there's like 5,600 a year.
Okay.
So the idea that you have a process in place that can handle this stuff and making sure people have their rights, do what they have to do, or you change the rights that they have. And that's the other option to do. But Congress hasn't done nothing for anything.
Thanks for the call. But what about the governor, her stance? We have a lot of things in this Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I look at particularly the legalization of marijuana. That is in total violation of federal law. We're kind of vulnerable there, aren't we?
No, I think there is. I believe there's some exception stuff to the marijuana thing in regard to being elected, because Oregon has it, Colorado has.
Right.
There's a ton of states now that have it.
But I don't think there's been any federal law changes.
But I think there's one that allows now, and I may be wrong on this, but the FDIC so you can use a bank now as opposed to just a local state qualified bank. So I think there is changes to it.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Sister Christian, come on. That was the best. Good morning. You're on the air.
Well, good morning, Mr. Markey, and good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
With all due respect to our senator and our congressman from this area, I would like to say that if you recall, I believe you just made, Mr. Markey, the comment that, well, what happened in 2000 and that letting people come over. Well, if you remember, ever since the quotas back in the 1800s when people were coming over, they had to come in, they had to have somebody represent them or would sponsor them. They had to sign up. They had to do it the right way. You've got somebody like our present governor going to the border several months ago and telling them, come on down, we're going to welcome you. Now she has to turn around and go back and tell some of them, sorry, you've got to leave. We don't have enough money to cover you. And they never came in droves about like this. So for the Democratic Party, and could be some Republicans as well, but for the majority of the Democrats that let this continue and didn't say nothing, and now they're going to play kind of like, oh, we're innocent, we didn't know. I don't think most of the American people buy this, and that's why President Trump got the mandate that he did, because they could see what's going on, and they're holding this administration and the party that was in charge mostly responsible for the whole thing. How do you feel about that? I think it was wrong, and I think they knew what they were doing, and now it's too little, too late. Now look what happened.
Chris?
Well, first, just to kind of go over, I don't think it was a mandate. I believe President Trump still has a minority of the votes, although he won the majority of, or he won and got more votes than Harris, and he won the Electoral College. I don't know if I'd characterize it as a mandate, but he won. And I do think that, immigration is a huge thing, and we need to correct it. And we've needed to correct it for 30 years. And the only place to really correct it is with Congress. So that's where we have to do it. It's a federal laws that have to be in control.
Chris, I always appreciate you coming in and taking my audience questions. You do a great job. We do appreciate it, even if you are a Democrat. Left winger though. In fact, you've been primaried by the hard left around here.
I've been primaried twice, I think, since I was elected. Yeah, so.
And you trounced them.
I won.
You won.
And I think
you got a mandate.
Yeah, no, I don't know, but I do think that it's time that we all try to have like real conversations about these issues in a realistic, polite way and figure things out. But I think the yelling and screaming on both sides is just not a productive way.
Save that for Thanksgiving. You and your family, I hope they have a wonderful Thanksgiving, Chris.
Thanks.
Do you stay local or you go out of town?
Stay local.
Stay